So I get a lot of comments from people that want to learn how to play Spanish guitar, but they just get caught up in the pre-planning stage and they just don't know how to start. So I made this video for you guys. I'm answering the top 10 questions that I get asked on how to start playing Spanish guitar. And I'm not talking about how to play techniques or how to play certain chords. I'm talking about all those questions in the pre-planning stage, from what guitar should you get, to how long do your nails really need to be, or how little can you practice and still make progress. Some of those questions will scare off people and eventually not have them start at any point. So I'm gonna cover these 10 questions in the next 10 minutes. Stick around, I hope it helps and kicks off your Spanish guitar journey. And by the way, these videos are part of a 10-day challenge that I held last year on how to get started playing Spanish guitar, which I held as part of my launch for my e-course, Spanish Guitar Made Easy. So if you're curious about how you can learn with me a little bit more in depth, stick around to the end. Let's get on the same page. What is Spanish guitar? Now, the term Spanish guitar can encompass anything from Spanish classical to flamenco, rumba flamenca, pop Spanish guitar, or it could even mean that you're playing repertoire from any type of genre, but using a Spanish guitar and using Spanish guitar techniques on the right hand. Now, do you have to hone in on one of these branches? Absolutely not. If you're like me, I enjoy playing a little bit from all of the above, both for my own enjoyment and also because this allows me to cater to and connect with different groups of people. I do like my aspiring guitarists to be aware of this, because if you already do know that you want to hone in a little bit more into Spanish classical or flamenco, it will affect the techniques that you prioritize at first, and this can affect which guitar you choose to purchase as your first. What type of guitar should you buy? Now, ideally, you want to purchase a nylon stringed acoustic classical or a flamenco guitar. Most beginners aren't even going to be able to hear the difference between a classical or a flamenco guitar. Now, which one should you get? It just depends. If you're gonna get into classical music and you know you really want to focus on that type of music, then go with the classical. But if you think you're gonna play flamenco or a little bit of all of the above under the Spanish guitar umbrella, then I suggest you go with a flamenco guitar. Generally speaking, flamenco guitars are set up with the playability factor a little easier for beginners, just because the strings are a little bit lower than on a classically set up guitar. Whichever type of guitar that you get, just make sure you get it from a reputable maker. Two of my favorite choices for great budget, quality, and entry-level guitars are Cordoba and Yamaha guitars. Do you need to grow out your nails to play Spanish guitar? The answer is yes and no. So in short, to play the majority of traditional right-hand Spanish guitar techniques, ideally yes, growing out your nails is just gonna make it a little bit more easier. It's also gonna give us options to our tone. By having a little bit of some nail length, we'll be able to decide between getting a fleshier tone or using those nails to get a more of a direct, sharper sound. Now, don't worry, you don't have to grow them out super long, but just having a little bit of that extra length does help. Now, can you play Spanish guitar without any nails? The answer is also yes. There's some very famous classical guitar players that were known for playing without any fingernail length. So if you can't grow out your nails for any reason, then don't use that as an excuse for not starting to play Spanish guitar. Now, do I recommend it? Ideally, I don't recommend it, just because you're a little bit more limited with your tone and your options. Typically, it's gonna be a little bit more of a duller sound, going straight from the flesh all the time, and some of the techniques may come a little bit more difficult. But don't let that scare you off, because I have had students that were able to learn without growing out their nails. So what else do you need beside a Spanish guitar to finally start playing? There's 4 accessories which I think are very important and will make a difference in your guitar journey. Number 1, make sure you get yourself a tuner. You want to make sure that you're playing in tune, both for yourself and for whoever you're playing for. I love this little discreet tuner by Diodario that you could clip onto the guitar, or you could just take it on and off at your convenience. Number 2, make sure to get yourself a metronome. It's going to be very crucial for your growth and a very important practice tool. Now, on a side note, there's a ton of great metronome and tuner apps that you can find for your phone. My only hesitation with that, speaking from personal experience, is that it can be a very big risk for distraction if you're using your phone during practice. I know that I've found myself in that situation where I'm using a metronome app, and before I know it, I grab it to change the tempo and I find myself scrolling or checking email or something else. Number 3, a capo. Now, the reason I like suggesting this is because it's a great practice tool for beginners. Lastly, I suggest that you pick up one of these guitar footstools, which will help you elevate your right or your left leg to help you get into better posture. So how should you hold the guitar? I'm gonna give you your 3 main choices. Number 1, if you wanna go the flamenco route, you put it over your right leg and elevate your right leg either by crossing your leg, just like I do most of the time, or using a footstool so that it's elevated. Your second choice would be to go to the classical route, put it on your left leg and elevate your left leg by using a footstool on your left leg to get more of this position. And lastly, if you have any issues with your back or elevating one of your legs and you want to keep both feet flat on the ground, they have some modern devices that attach to the guitar over here and then lean up to your leg so it will hold up the guitar for you in a classical or flamenco position. Personally, I like the flamenco position as my go-to. Which position do you think you'll lean towards? Whichever position or posture you decide on, just don't do this. This video is brought to you by my signature e-course, Spanish Guitar Made Easy, which I created for the absolute beginner. Feel free to check out the link in my description for more details and enrollment, and let's get back to the video. What are some of the primary techniques for the right hand that you need to learn to start playing Spanish guitar? Now, to start off with a few of the essential techniques that cross over between classical and flamenco and everything in between, you're gonna need a picking mechanism. And that's gonna be accomplished by either using your rest stroke or your free stroke. And then you have some techniques that are also a little bit more unique and particular to flamenco. And that includes techniques like the rasgueado, abanico, the alzapúa, and a couple other ones as well. Don't get overwhelmed. You don't need to learn them all at once. I love having my aspiring beginner students start off with one picking mechanism, the rest stroke, and one strumming mechanism, one of the rasgueados. And you'd be amazed at how much you can play with just those two techniques to start off. So what's the main difference between classical and flamenco guitar playing? Now, I'm not going to get into the historical and cultural differences, which can take a long time to cover. Generally speaking, in terms of sound, classical guitarists are a lot more concerned with getting a cleaner, more polished sound, as opposed to flamenco guitarists, which usually have a harsher attack with their techniques, thus giving them a little bit more of a grungier, raspier sound on the guitar. Even with the guitar itself, classical guitarists like to have the action, the height of the strings raised a little bit more to make sure that they have the cleanest sound possible, as opposed to flamenco guitarists where they like to have the strings lowered a little bit more to intentionally get a little bit more of that raspier or distorted sound. And in terms of repertoire, classical guitarists are very well known for adhering to and wanting to follow the instructions of the composer so that it could live on exactly as it was composed. As opposed to flamenco guitarists, which take falsetas, which are small phrases or maybe even an entire piece, and continually try to evolve them and add their own personality and own spin into them. So what side of the spectrum do you find yourself tilting more towards, the classical or flamenco side? Do you need to learn how to read music to play Spanish guitar? Now, the answer to that is very personal and depends on your specific goals. But my short answer would be no, I don't think you need to learn how to read music. I think it's perfectly okay to use tablature, which is a simplified version of music notation, but I will say that it does come in handy to be able to read the rhythmic notation of the music. All that means is that you don't have to actually be able to read the music in terms of notes, but if you can at least read the rhythmic notation and understand the note values, then that will come in very handy even when just looking at tablature, because they usually have the rhythmic notation above the tablature, which is there as a guide to help you out rhythmically. So sure, if you're young and you have a lot of extra time on your hands and you want to learn a lot of classical music specifically, then yes, go ahead and learn how to read music. But if you're on the flip side and you're stressed and find it difficult to even find time to practice the music itself, then keep it simple. Learn visually and use tablature. There's nothing wrong with that. One of the questions I get asked the most often is, how long do I need to practice to actually learn the guitar and make some progress? Can you actually learn with 15 to 30 minute practice sessions, or do you need a couple hours? Can I just practice on the weekends? What is it? So here's a key element of this question. What type of practice are we talking about? Because 15 to 30 minutes of a very focused and strategic practice is going to be much more powerful and potent than 2 hours of just noodling around the guitar while multitasking and without any clear direction. So in short, yes, you can make progress and learn the guitar with 15 to 30 minute practice sessions as long as they're very consistent and a part of your daily habits. Starting off small with as little as 15 minutes a day will increase your chances of sustaining that new habit and introducing that new habit into your lifestyle. So just remember, there's an advantage to starting off small and baby steps. Even if you have the time, I wouldn't recommend starting off right away with 1 hour, 2 hour daily practice sessions. It's just going to increase your chances of burning out, and the days that you can't find that full hour or 2 hours, then you're just gonna feel discouraged that you couldn't get in your ideal practice session. Start off with 15 minutes, increase it to 30, and by all means, if you have the time and you can start building up your endurance and adding it to your daily habits, then increase the time. Of course, it's gonna increase your chances of more progress and more growth in your guitar journey at a faster pace, as long as those practices are very focused and strategic. Now, it would be very irresponsible of me not to mention one of the most underrated aspects of succeeding when learning the guitar. That is your mindset. Most of you haven't started learning the guitar, or you've given up, or you're just having trouble progressing because of the limiting mindset and stories that you run through your head consistently and don't even realize. So the first thing I want you to do is identify any of those negative self-beliefs that you have running in your head. Maybe you used to think, I wasn't born with any musical talent, I don't have any natural rhythm, the guitar is just way too overwhelming and too tough to ever get really good at it. Whether it's valid or not, I want you to throw those out of your head. Now, I know it sounds pretty obvious and simple, but you have to believe in yourself and you have to envision yourself playing the guitar. You have to envision yourself in your ideal situations, whether it be playing for yourself, sitting on the couch playing your favorite song, whether it be serenading some of your loved ones or your partner, or maybe you even want to envision yourself playing on a big stage one day. Whatever your goal is, I could guarantee you that if you continue to let those negative voices and negative self-beliefs run through your head, and even worse, if you vocalize them to other people, I could guarantee that you're not even going to reach 10% of your full potential as a guitarist. Because if you don't, you're just going to continue to self-sabotage your guitar journey, and why even pick up the instrument if you're already hindering yourself before you actually play? So here's the thing, getting started can be the hardest part of learning a new skill. Just taking that first action step is one of the most important things that you can do. Whether it's going to the gym or learning an instrument or learning any new skill. Sometimes people want to focus too much on the pre-planning game, on what they need. For example, if you're going to the gym, what clothes do you need? What type of shoes do you need? Or if you're learning an instrument, what guitar do I need? How do I have to have my nails, etc., etc. They overthink everything too much. And I've fallen into that game myself. Speaking from personal experience, I have fallen into the overthinking game, where you overthink something so much and then it takes you a couple years to get started, rather than just jumping into the game and just starting messy and then adding a game plan to it. It's best to just jump into it and then think of a game plan than to over procrastinate and overthink something and let it take a couple years. So I hope this video helped you out if you were stuck in that pre-planning stage. Go out, get your first guitar, get a couple accessories if you need them, but just get started. There's so much information out there, there's no excuse. You have a ton of videos, whether it be on my channel or some of my fellow peers that have amazing educational channels. Just get started. And then if you want some more help, I'm happy to help you. If you want to check out my Spanish Guitar Made Easy program and you want to learn directly under my wing, be part of my community, I'd be honored to have you on board. Make sure to check out the link in the description or shoot me a message and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Let me know in the comments, if you haven't started playing Spanish guitar, what's the #1 reason that's holding you back?